Fast 5 hit theaters on April 29, 2011, and it not only saved the Fast and Furious franchise, but it also quietly invented a blueprint that has carried over to every other tentpole action franchise since its release. The movies went from illegal street racing and heists to blockbuster action scenes that rival even superhero movies in the Hollywood landscape. Thanks to Fast 5, the Fast and the Furious movie series has become a multi-billion-dollar success story. The original The Fast and the Furious was a street racing movie that was a clear riff of the 1990s classic Point Break. In both of those movies, a young law enforcement officer went undercover with a group of tightly knit thieves to bring them down from within. In this case, it was Brian O'Connor, Paul Walker, an LAPD officer who goes undercover in a street racing team of thieves led by Dominic Toretto, Vin Diesel. The two become friends, and Brian ends up helping Dom escape. The two subsequent sequels dropped in quality. Diesel left after the first movie, and Walker left after the second. The Fast and the Furious, Tokyo Drift had neither of the original stars and almost killed the franchise. In 2009, Diesel and Walker returned for Fast and Furious, and it was back to street racing and heists. However, in 2011, something interesting happened, and director Justin Lin changed the format of the movies, added over-the-top action scenes that rivaled anything the movies had done before, and the franchise never looked back. Fast 5 turned Fast and Furious into a superhero franchise. After the box office drop-off of The Fast and the Furious, Tokyo Drift, the studio realized it had to bring back Diesel and Walker if it wanted to revive the franchise. When the box office jumped drastically with their return, the series had a chance to take the next step. Lin made a huge creative decision by eliminating most of the street racing storylines. Instead, he turned it into a heist action series. Heists were always part of the movies, but they overtook street racing scenes to a considerable degree. There was only one car race in this film, although the car chases and stunts became more prominent. The runtime is mostly devoted to planning the heist, more gunfights, hand-to-hand combat, and the incredible vault chase scene at the end. Watching the team plan out and perform the heist elevated it into something bigger. These former street racers now acted like superheroes, and they seemed nearly invincible. This played out in other areas later in the series as well. Characters died and then came back with miraculous reasons for how they survived their death scenes. No one stayed dead, and by the time Fast X ended, it seemed everyone was still around. The Fast and Furious franchise was more comic book-like than even comic book movies. Fast 5 started this by showing Dom as a superhero from the first second of the film, with an impossible stunt scene that he pulled off impressively. The rest of the movies after this added even more superhero-styled themes, from upping the spy thriller elements, adding drones, skydiving cars, and even sending a car into outer space for one mission. Nothing was out of the question, and Fast 5 was clearly the moment where everything changed, adding a level of comic absurdity that made a multi-billion-dollar franchise. Dwayne Johnson sparked new life into franchise. On top of making Dom a superhero in his own right, Fast 5 also added someone else to the cast who helped elevate things instantly. This was the movie where Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson signed on as Luke Hobbs. He was a DSS agent who was pursuing Dom and his crew in Brazil to arrest them for their past crimes. However, to add to the superhero aesthetic, he was impossibly muscular and charismatic, and he ended up as the perfect rival for Dom. That the two men ended up fighting each other before teaming up at the end proved this movie knew that it was part of a superhero franchise at its core. Not only did this present the Dom-Hobbs rivalry and connection, but it also led to Hobbs connecting with another major star in the movies, Jason Statham's Deckard Shaw. Those two even got their own spin-off movie, Hobbs and Shaw, which was also a tremendous success. Casting Johnson also created a snowball effect for the future Fast and Furious movies. Major stars soon followed, with names like Statham, Idris Elba, Helen Mirren, Kurt Russell, Charlize Theron, John Cena, and Jason Momoa joining the cast. Johnson proved this was the hottest franchise in Hollywood, and all the other stars quickly followed. Fast 5 helped Fast and Furious become a box office juggernaut. The biggest thing to note about the Fast and Furious franchise is that Fast 5 changed the box office ceiling of the movies. Before this fifth film in the series, the first three movies combined for a total of $600.6 million worldwide. The fourth movie climbed up and finished with $359.3 million. However, Fast 5 made more than the first three movies combined, bringing in $629.9 million. Tokyo Drift, on its own, topped out at $157.7 million. After Fast 5 rewrote the rules on what this series was about, the series exploded and became one of the top-grossing movie franchises of the 21st century. Two of the movies, Furious 7 and The Fate of the Furious, broke the $1 billion mark at the box office. Even Hobbs and Shaw broke $760 million. Things dropped somewhat with the last two main series films, but both F9, The Fast Saga and Fast X still broke $700 million. There is reportedly only one film left, with Fast Forever due to release in 2028. The drop to $700 million at the box office caused the studio to rethink the final film, which seems astonishing considering what the franchise was making before Fast 5 came in and changed things. If anything, this one movie from 15 years ago raised the franchise to unforeseen heights and then was so successful that it set exceedingly high expectations for all future releases.